Well, welcome. Thank you. A double thank you to PNC. This is the second time I've been invited to this program. For those of you who are here, I was here in 2017, and I want you to know, as the self-appointed ambassador for all things cyber for Western Pennsylvania, when I talk about our assets, we were the original hub for cyber law enforcement. We had the ball for China and Russia, the NCFTA, what's going on at CMU and at the University of Pittsburgh. I always list PNC at the top of the list because of the commitment that you've made. Sitting next to Linda, when she came on the board, that was a statement coming from the top that this really mattered. I'm looking at my good friend Chris Geary, who's joined our organization. I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for Chris Geary. He was at the center of finding China when we were trying to protect Pittsburgh companies from intellectual property theft. And so I really applaud all of you. And I've been asked to talk about the insider threat as a discrete class of threat. You know, we went after China for intellectual property theft. Ransomware is on our mind right now. Business email compromise is a big problem. The supply chain, which is how the adversaries migrate to the weakest link in the chain, going after law firms and accountants and in the military, the tier 3 and tier 4 suppliers that don't have the commitment that Raytheon has. But the insider threat is not new, it's just we have a sharper focus on it. And there are really two types of insiders. One is the stooge, the innocent dupe, the person who has poor cyber hygiene, who doesn't have a good password, doesn't change passwords, doesn't have dual-factor authentication, and is careless about that. We used to be, sort of tolerant about that person. We'd call that person, oh, that's John or that's Jane, and he doesn't really understand cyber. And at that time, the person who had to go up to the C-suite and talk about that was usually the CISO, who got fired because of that neglect. Well, that doesn't happen anymore, because we now realize that negligence by a member of the team doesn't only hurt that person, it hurts the organization, and it can take down an industry. The great work that PNC does benefits the entire financial industry. And so if it's got a gap or a weak link in it, it stands to reason that it's also going to hurt everybody. The second type of insider is the criminal or the co-conspirator, the person who has a grievance against the organization and is deliberate about their efforts to hurt the organization. And there's two ways we find these people. One is by human behavior characteristics, someone who's not following the rules, who's sending emails to foreign countries in the middle of the night, taking their devices out of the building, and that is now become a lot easier. But there's also enhanced, improved detection using algorithms to find out abnormal inflows to the company and abnormal exports. Because what the criminals do is they become very effective at coming into an organization and hiding their tracks and creating a back door so that they can go out and come in without your notice. When we did the China case, one of the things Chris discovered was this entire network of hot points across the United States. We were able to defeat that, but we were all startled to learn that 50% were companies and 50% were people like you and me. And so when the PLA was coming from Shanghai in the middle of the night into the U.S. Steel organization, it looked like a benign visit from somebody in Kansas, and it was really the Unit 61398 of the People's Liberation Army of China. So we're not really yet at the point where we talk about this in terms of terrorism, where it's see something, say something. Well, we're pretty close. It's that important. And I think you all need to be aware of your own responsibility to not be negligent, to follow rules. We can reduce cyber intrusions down substantially if we just do what Eric talked about, the basic elements of cyber hygiene. We're never going to completely reduce crime. We haven't succeeded in dealing with that since human beings were on the planet. So our expectation has to be we want to reduce the crime that we can reduce. Now, on the subject of regulation, I've been very vocal. I've been writing a lot recently, particularly with regard to the explosion of interest in generative AI. Now in the university community, and in November, everybody was losing their minds, worried that ChatGPT was going to become the person who wrote all the exams that we got last semester. I personally thought if anyone was clever enough to use ChatGPT, they should get an A+, but don't quote me. But, you know, I believe that what we need to talk about is the benefits of this technology and the concerns in equal measure. And I believe it is a false choice to discuss regulation as at odds with innovation. I believe we can and we must do both. The real challenge with generative AI is, for the very first time, as Ann said, I think we have a game changer where the technology could harness us instead of the other way around. It is that game changing. And you know, for a person like me who wasn't really good at math, when we had math tables back in the day, in the dark ages when I went to school, we went to slide rules, we went to calculators, we went to PDA devices. We took something that was rudimentary and that there was no reason to be concerned about how technology could make that happen faster, because then we could use it. What I'm looking for when I talk about the regulatory landscape is we need to be concerned about things which deprive us of that which makes us human, our thinking ability, our judgment. That's what I look at.
Well, thank you, David.